Live. Check my shit. Sorry, I'll get my hand out of your way.
Don't worry, my tongue will be in your ear in a little bit.
Oh boy. Well, everyone heard that.
That's fine. How you doing? Welcome to Rut Club Radio.
You won't. You just. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
It's okay. I don't have that. I'm not that high tech.
No, you're cool.
Dude, I'm so close you could give me a physical.
This is how it goes until we get it figured out. Hey, everybody. We're live on Rut Club Radio's Where to Hunt podcast. I'm Eric. I'm your host. And before we get rolling, real quick shout out to these guys here. It's actually funny. So in the studio, I got Connor. We got Greg. And Connor, I had showed you this because you thought this was a heating pad for like your ass to sit on a cushion. And oddly enough, I thought the same thing the first time I saw these guys heated hunts.
Whatever works.
So I'll take a quick second to clarify. Heated hunts is a heated hunt scent dispenser, which if you unscrew this top part here, as you'll see on the camera, there's these wicks in there. Jesus. And there's a little cord going up to that wick. That cord,
If you whip that around, it works as a nunchuck too.
yeah, that cord is hooked up to 4 AA batteries in the bottom, and it heats it up.
In case you
So
need a nunchuck in
In
the
case
woods.
you need a nunchuck in the woods.
I'll just say that these guys sponsor this segment of the show. And if you call into the show, you're entered into a drawing to win their gear, whether it's this, some scents, or some of their swag, shirt, hat, etc. So if you want to win, call in. I expect a lot of calls today because I think the rut is basically here. And if it's not, we're very, 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 very close. So I want to hear what's going on. So I don't see any calls in the queue yet, folks. Let's get her going. Start sharing this. I'm going to start a watch
Wait,
party.
yeah, so I can watch it, right? But I have
Yep.
to turn the volume off?
Yeah, you do.
Dude, guys are in the stand right now.
So let me get some of these going.
That's true.
Tune
Dude
in.
should be in the stand right now.
Yeah, this thing called work kind of gets in the way.
So Connor,
The sun is setting early right now, too.
Yep.
how do you think the rut's going so far?
That's like a loaded question.
No shit.
I don't think it's fully started,
Okay.
but I think if you look at it differently than full out rut, you can key in on sign that's being put down
We were just
and
talking about
find
that.
deer that are on their feet.
Right.
I was telling Eric earlier before you showed up, Greg, that my area I found this buck in didn't even have a mature buck rub or maybe like an evident fresh licking branch, but there were a few doe scrapes. But I hunted the fresh buck turd I found.
Sure.
And just the winds and like the odds of the old rut sign like being
Generational rubs.
yeah, like coming fresh soon. They're just not cranked up enough to start,
Yeah.
rubbing. So
It's going to come quick.
yeah, I just dove in there and hunted it, right?
Yeah.
And found this deer and well, I think the first night and then perhaps killed the same deer. When I tell the story, I
Sure.
think you'll agree, but I
Yeah.
think it's the same deer I saw the night before and was full drawn on. But
Sure. Well, and funny thing is that's kind of how I located this guy over my right shoulder here. Is I walked around an area, transition out of the marsh. Everything was wet where he came from, and I literally walked in, found a freshly tore up tree that was about my waist high. Walked a little further, found a scrape. Walked a little further, found another tree tore up waist high, still dripping wet. Walked a little further some more, ran into a hiker, let him pass. Then there was a scrape. The hiker walked right through another scrape. And then, so I figured, well, this is going to have to be good enough because I'm running low on light. I got out there late. I'm going to just throw a sit at it. If anything, it'll be, at best, it'll be an observation sit. And lo and behold, an hour and a half, 2 hours later, he came tromping out of the wet stuff. And I ended up shooting him like literally 5 feet from another scrape that he had laid down.
Shit.
Yeah, I just happened to see it as I was up in that tree. I looked down, and boy, that ground sure is pretty barren of canary grass because it's all 4 foot tall canary grass.
is
around
this a
there.
morning hunt?
Nope, it's an
No?
evening
Okay.
hunt. So, no, I had my niece's soccer game to go to first over in Madison, and I literally ran from one vehicle to the next. I had my truck all packed up and just ran out there.
Because that's what happened to me the next morning. I dove in and it's pitch black. You can't read really scrapes unless you're really poking around with a headlamp. And set up in a tree on a doe trail, and I'm like, I can shoot this military crest coming up. That it's just the perfect setup when you look at it. You've got like 2 knobs and then a ridge running east-west that splits. One goes off onto private above a big ag field, or it's actually a green food source, and then the draw on public and a big ridge going back on public. And I set up to shoot that with the northwest wind, thinking deer would come up that and turn and come my way, but there wasn't any sign that I read coming from because I left my stand in there. There wasn't any sign in between there that told me really to sit there but that trail, and I just wanted to shoot that trail coming up. And it happens like this a lot for me now. The sun comes up and you look down and that scrape's like 5 feet from your tree, and it's like, oh, okay, this is right.
You're right there.
Lance Brown said big bucks have big turds.
I concur.
Is that real?
I concur.
I mean,
think about it. I bet Greg has bigger turds than both of us.
Greg's a turd right now for not shutting his fucking alarm.
He said that before this started too.
He's like, I got to deal with this.
Oh, it's the realtor.
You want to take it?
I probably should.
Does that make an alarm?
All right, I'm
that she's calling.
Somebody call in. Somebody call in.
Greg will be back for more. I'm just gonna get some elbow room here while he talks to the realtor. So, crashing out of here like a big buck.
But yeah, so
no
I
calls
think
yet, but
I think scrapes are popping up a lot more than rubs, at least for this southern Wisconsin area and the parts of Iowa I've been in.
Well, the one we saw was huge. I mean, you said it was about as big as a car hood. It certainly was at least as big as this table.
Yeah, the one was definitely a picnic table rub, or picnic table scrape. And the other 2 were definitely almost car hoods. So
tell me a little bit more about. So I've had a couple folks start listening to the podcast that are newer to hunting, and I know we have a spectrum, right? We have some people that are just getting in. You're fairly new to hunting, albeit you've made up for lost time by putting a shit ton of time in the woods. And then we have some folks that are a little bit more seasoned, etc. Why are rubs scrapes getting bigger? What does that tell us?
So it's a communication center between the deer. I have them in Iowa as early as checking old ones at like October 5th, coming to them just curious. And it's like, I don't know, it's like us going to social media almost to see what's going on with everybody else.
That's a good comparison.
And,
the bigger the group, the bigger the scrape kind of thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I hung that camera, I don't know, it was only in there 36 hours, but that one buck was in there pretty quick, even when I peed in it. So,
is that the same one that we took some photos of you hanging with the sun?
Yep. I sent you that picture earlier of him. So, it's usually targeted around doe bedding, the best ones that I find, or doe frequenting areas. But I think they're good to hunt right now if you're hunting them tight to bed. But as far as public land, like if they're anywhere close to ag, I don't think you're going to see that daylight movement with mature deer quite yet.
When do you think? I mean, it just snowed last night. Did you have some of that up by you too?
Yeah, I went in there and pulled that camera today too, right? So those weren't really freshened up except from him, and that's what the camera showed. But some of the other ones were hit by does and stuff, and you can read the prints. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but Halloween is when everybody swears it gets good, so I don't go trick-or-treating anymore.
Yeah, I did. But it's funny because there's years I can think back to as a younger dude in my young 20s, and all I could think to do is go out to the bars and drink and get shit-faced. But even still, I'd be home, 3 a.m, and I'd be up at 4 an hour later to go hunting, on Halloween and daylight savings and all that jazz. So that hasn't, I'm not getting shit-faced anymore, but these are the times.
Success is right around the corner then.
I mean, I came out by you. I left at my house at 3:30 in the morning to get out there. Might be interrupted
early.
By what?
Early bird gets the worm.
Having like a problem here with internet connectivity.
Takes a little bit of crazy, they say.
Yeah, well, my wife made fun of me. She's like, "Oh, you really are the okayest hunter." And then you had said the same thing. I was like, "Okay, fuck this. I'm getting up. I'm not taking that from both of you guys."
Dang, she gave you shit
She
too?
did. She's like, "You better get up." So she was giving me crap. I don't know why this has been interrupted, but hopefully you guys can all still hear.
Yeah, 18 pages open. That's why, bud.
Yeah, that's what happens. So it says it's still going, but I don't know where the disconnect is. It shouldn't be interrupted. Everything seems to be working just fine. This is still going.
By the way,
Anyway.
everybody, Eric gave me some coffee and also 2 Busch Lights, so I'm kind of going back and forth.
Yeah, I'm done with the coffee now, so I'll be
Is
good
that
for
like a
while.
Mad Dog 2020, but
Is that what it's called?
white boy way?
I'd have to know what a Mad Dog is. Okay, the video's back up. So I don't know what happened, but it's working now. I saw on the way into work on Monday an outside the ears buck with a doe in an open field, a city buck, so just, some random field right on the way to work in New Berlin, Wisconsin. And it was about 7:20 in the morning, and they were both, they're pretty far apart, but they were both looking a different direction. So there must have been something else in the field that I wasn't seeing that they were interested in, but it was a big buck. Big body, big rack. There's 3 lanes separating me in a median, so I couldn't really do much about it. I wanted to stop and take a look, and I just had to keep going, unfortunately. Nothing crazy. Wasn't chasing, nose to the ground or anything. It was both out there just dumbstruck standing in a field.
This guy did come out with his nose to the ground.
Okay.
Kind of, nose low at least. And he was moving. He wasn't really, he was going somewhere. But I think it's fun to get at, like, when you start seeing dead deer in the ditch repeatedly and farmers in the fields, it's time to start putting time in the woods.
Yeah, and I saw a new dead one
at the
this
same
morning.
time.
A fork. He must have been hit last night.
Be patient at the same time. There's a lot of time left, a lot of good hunting left. I personally have allocated some of my time in other areas because I want to hunt a piece late November in Iowa where I had my first encounter. So I'm going to be doing some filming more than hunting actually for the rut in Iowa, which sounds weird, but I've had a pretty stellar year so far and want to help some of my buddies out that have helped me. And
yeah.
I think
the camera time's fun
to have
too.
some deer camps and
there's some learning with all that stuff too. Hey, real quick, folks, there's a number on the bottom of the screen. Go ahead and give us a call. Tell us what you're seeing, where you're seeing it. This is the time of the year where this should be popping way off. We should really be hearing from you folks. You can feel free to comment in too, and we'll tally that up. If you want us to call you, put your phone number, and I'll just call you guys. But this is your show. This is your segment. Let's hear what you guys have to say. I'd love to. John Robinson, what's going on?
We went from 29 to 14.
Yeah, I think it's because the video.
What did
froze.
I say? Oh.
Yeah, you told everyone to. I don't know. What was the drink called again?
Oh, Mad Dog 2020.
They're like, fuck
They're
this.
pretty big in Iowa. I don't know. At least in our
I've heard of Mad Dog.
clique.
The beer?
Yeah, that's like,
It's like that Red Dog.
well, it's
Mad
kind of
Dog?
like
It's like a big bulldog or something. That's an old beer. Who's this?
Who's this?
Oh, look who it is.
Oh boy.
We know this guy. He's gonna get entered to win. Hey Jeff, you're live on Rut Club Radio. Welcome to the show.
Hey guys, how you doing?
The expert is in the house.
We were just talking about you before.
No.
We're gonna make you mount all of our deer, whether you want to or not.
Congrats, Connor. You're off to a great season.
You've been hunting, Jeff. What have you been seeing?
I'll call in. I'll give you a little bit of update here of what I'm currently seeing. Been hitting it, hardcore on the weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday hunting most of every week, and then the day job during the week. But where I've been doing a lot of my time is in hill country. So it's in Minnesota. It's just across from Buffalo County up there. It's on private, but we've been seeing a lot of scrape activity pop up in the last couple days. I've got my cameras set out at different spots on field edges, and I've got them on video mode, and I've got a lot of video of probably 100-inch bucks, a little bit smaller, that are starting to get a little scrappy and push each other around and a little bit aggressive. So they're starting to show those things. A lot more rubs are showing up in staging areas just outside of that bedding areas as well that weren't there the prior week. So I think that testosterone is starting to flow, and they're starting to get on their feet and, getting a little bit irritated here and there and starting to leave those beds just a hair earlier. I haven't seen anything mature on its feet, doing rutting activity as in like getting up and chasing a hot doe. I do have a couple pictures in the night of a doe coming through and a buck or two not far behind her on the camera. So things are starting to heat up. So it's getting to be that prime time of year. So
I'll say something. You mentioned trail cameras, and something I've done this year is definitely went to all lithium-ion batteries. Definitely went to bigger cards, all 16s. But I ran video because you can just tell the direction and the demeanor of the deer, and you catch other deer. And with your higher-end cameras, I don't really see them filling up fast at all or dying or having any effect in that way. But
no, I'm doing the same thing. I'm not running the lithiums right now, but I have the 16 gig cards in there. But one thing I really pay attention to when I have it on that video mode is I have one on a water source and I have one on an apple tree food source as well. But when I see a buck come in or a doe come in, I'll pay more attention to their ears than anything, because that's telling me which other deer are in that area and where they're coming from. And they might not be on the camera, but you're picking up to, like, he's keyed in on something over there. So that might be another direction of travel that you might not see them at, but you might tip you off to like a secondary trail or something like that to stage or stand in the correct area too.
yeah, we could talk about this forever, because you mentioned sparring. I had bucks sparring, not fighting, but they were definitely pushing each other around and like running each other off beginning of October on this piece in Iowa. And I think it was like 6 different stud 2.5-year-olds to like 4.5-year-olds just in there repeatedly, getting after each other. So I don't know quite what it is about the piece yet, but I'm anxious to get back in there. Greg or Jeff, have you changed your batteries at all this year? Because I went
not yet. I've been lucky.
Okay, I went to a longer soaking period this year, so I went away from like lower end batteries, and on my higher end cameras, I haven't had to change a single one, or I haven't even lost a percentage yet.
Yeah, wow, that's really good. I'm planning on leaving a couple out over the rest of the rut into like the late season, and then picking them up after everything's done and over, just to get a little bit more intel for the bigger picture. If we do ever have to go into that late season, so I've got a little bit more, realistic intel of what's happening, now opposed to what the time frame over the last 5 years has been. But one other thing that I just want to point out, what I've discovered too, is that a couple of these knobs I have are in a series, so it's one right after the other on a ridge, and I'll kind of stage hunt across of. But what I did notice was one of those knobs, when I came across it, had way more rubs. So I set up on that knob on Friday evening, and that last lake I had a nice 6-pointer walk right below me, and in tow right behind him was an 8-pointer, and he came up and just kind of, rubbed a few trees gently and staged his way and finally got up there. But he was a smart guy, because I think he caught on to something just wasn't right, and he veered off at the last second. But I wasn't planning to hunt that spot. When I was going there, I was cutting through that knob to get to a different knob, but the hot sign told me, like, hey, there's a lot more rubs that weren't here, and they're popping up. So if I wouldn't have stopped, then I would have just blown right by. I wouldn't have, had that activity. But I think when you discover this sign this time of the year, before they're really pressured, that's something to key in on and hunt it when it happens.
That's interesting.
Same thing with scrapes,
About the rubs, because I was fortunate to get help by the landowner where I assumed my buck to go, and we came up his property on a UTV, and his ridge was rubbed up, but it wasn't like rubs that would make me stop and hunt, which was interesting to me, because that guy was still in there. Like I told Greg earlier, I hunted the historic rut sign and the fresh buck turd that told me there was a big buck in there. Because and I think that's important to look at right now, because a spot's good if a spot's good, right?
Don't just take his
if,
word.
Yeah,
Hunt
if
the
that
turd.
testosterone's not cranked up right now, I don't think they're going to be ripping apart trees yet. Or if like the bucks aren't highly populated in that area, they're not competing quite yet.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, lack of rubs doesn't mean that bucks are there. It just means that the competition hasn't cranked up, or that there's not a battle going on for territory. So even those little rubs, I never overlook them. I just kind of pay attention to the height of the rub, because I've seen big bucks rub on little trees, and I've seen little bucks rub on big trees.
Yeah.
You know, but
well,
my favorite thing on height sign is just scrapes after it rains. But I gotta let you guys go and get back to some other callers. So I've talked enough of your ear off.
Well, let's hope some other callers call in. But right now, you got a 100% chance of winning a heated hunt, Jeff.
No.
Jeff, also, what's
that
good
would be
about
awesome.
this call-in stuff is I can see your address now, and I'll be swinging by and dropping this deer off to be mounted. So thanks for calling in, buddy.
It pulls all your cell phone.
Appreciate
it. Yeah.
We got everything, Jeff.
Does it really?
No.
Nice.
We're
Well,
big brother in your ass.
you should have that stuff anyway. So
we know where
Be
you
good,
live.
brother. Thanks for calling.
Have a good night, Jeff. Hey, tell
no. Wish you all great luck, guys.
Yeah.
Keep
say
up
hi
the
to
great work.
Jameson for us.
Yep. Have a great night, guys. Bye bye.
Yeah, look, it looks like I'm leaning in to give you a freaking peck.
Yeah. Right here on the cheek.
I gotta make sure I talk into the mic, you know.
Should I part some facial hair for you so you can hit some skin?
That C, man.
Did you sell your house?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
The good and bad news is I got to be out by Sunday.
Well, good thing it's the rut, and we're talking about Rut Club Radio, and you're not gonna be hunting it.
I'll
More
be
deer
honest,
for us.
I like post-rut and pre-rut way more than the rut. Jason Campbell opened by mine, too.
Post-rut sounds
The
difficult.
buck activity being more patternable and more consistent in, like, the pre-rut periods.
Yep.
To, like, in a lot, and he hunts that like the rut.
Well, they're
instead
not
of
out
hunting
roaming.
the typical vacation time, which he considers lockdown.
Yep.
Because if you're not in that funnel, you're not in that pinch where those deer get pushed through or getting bumped, like you're stuck in a rut.
Sure.
So that's why I've really been putting time in, and I took time off this weekend because I anticipated
paid off.
low traffic.
Yep.
And good deer movement, especially with the temperatures.
And a cool snowstorm that we had.
Yeah, that was sweet.
Yeah,
I dig that.
sucked
So
through all
that's
of it.
like a sign for me. I'm like really in touch with some spiritual stuff now since I started bow hunting, because like I'm in my own head for once. And the other time this happened was when I went out to Colorado for my birthday. It started snowing as I walked into Winter Park, and my dad told me this cool story about my grandfather growing up next to Winter Park and going there with his buddy and skiing, and his buddy going to the Olympics, etc. But he never told me it until I told him I was leaving to go to Colorado for my snowboarding trip. And then when I got out there, it began snowing. I had to drink a Budweiser in his honor. And then, so last night, I'm sitting there just admiring my buck hanging from the tree, and it began snowing. The storm pushed in.
That's
and
pretty cool.
It was like he was there again for one of the coolest moments of my life.
It's awesome.
It was sweet.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That was a cool campsite we're at too. We'll have to get into some more of that.
Camping
I've been
snow.
bragging about, dude, the fucking meal you cooked.
Cast iron skillets,
top
man.
3 best venison meals I
We
ever
do
had.
a lot of our cooking at home out of cast iron.
Greg, did you go downstairs and come back upstairs without beers?
No, I did not go downstairs because there's
okay.
company down there.
It was a question.
Who's the company?
I know it was
Logan?
a
Don't get
legit
offended.
question.
Is Logan the
No,
company?
there's a man's voice down there.
Oh, great. Who the hell's here?
I don't know.
Probably contract.
Spencer, thanks for tuning in.
Hey, Spencer. Hey, Kevin. What's
Thanks
going
for being
on?
my blood tracking dog. Most
I
of the
am.
time.
We got 6 minutes left.
What's up, Kevin?
Before we kick this can on the show for the segment, and right now Jeff Genke's got a 100% chance of winning a heated hunt. So if you want to maybe spite Jeff or get a shot at this, whatever you're into, you just got to call in to qualify. So otherwise you're gonna hear us 3 idiots just keep rattling on for a while.
Yeah,
just,
keep rattling.
The show is for you guys.
Mike, I know you had some encounters up north just from your text messages and all the deer dick pics you showed. You should be calling in.
You got all sorts of activity going on here.
So, Eric, I'll tell you, when I went in to pull that camera, I actually did go in and blow up part of that bedding area just to see what's going on. And I found a pretty gnarly spot that's just a pretty bulletproof setup, especially when you have high water right now.
Did you bounce any out?
This is the one.
No. Yeah, that was the one that was on camera.
I'd take that all day. If you would have walked down when we were in that tree, I would have got him.
And to tell you something, 650, that tells me he's close. He might be coming from a little further off, but the location of that camera...
It's not far.
It's not too far, and it's a lot of open woods
and
where that scrape is.
And we're at the point of the season now where he's smelled enough.
When that was, where he was bedded, and I don't want to sound cocky, but I think I could have thrown a pretty aggressive set at that guy and got us pretty close to his bedding area and saw him right at that last light time. We would have been way towards his bedding area from that scrape, but there's just a major terrain change and a major bench and trail that comes up that tells me, and then a bench or a ridge across from there that just tells me he was coming to that cut corn to see what the does were doing, hit that scrape because I freshened it up the day before, and I think if we were there last night, it would have been money. It would have been on. So,
I still enjoyed the sit. It was beautiful. I took a shit ton of really pretty pictures, but
we should have rode that out. I didn't know you were going to go back. So if
I'd
I'd known you were going to take off, I would have said, screw it, let's just ride it out. You never know. But there's one of those bulletproof setups where there's just those canyons, and it gets just so rugged before it falls off the ridge that first bench they cross furthest from the access path is just torn up with sign. There's a big scrape on each side, and it's you can hunt it in almost every wind, and you can kind of hunt it on a bad wind if it's variable with your thermals, because they're going to suck down the mandatory ridge you're sitting on towards the river. So late season I might come back and try and do a big doe slaughter out, because we'll talk about this, the CWD thing, right?
Yep.
Has me thinking the Mitch Baker stuff, and deer population numbers, rut activity kind of all determines that, right? And CWD alone, deer population has to go down. Mitch Baker was saying how lease prices or property prices are going down, right? Because the CWD testing positive, etc. Well, I felt as a bow hunter, because I did venture to different parts and counties of Wisconsin this year, that I owe it to the county I bought my tags in to spend that season there and try and fill those. I think that's kind of the sportsman's code when you enter a zone like this with CWD.
It's a good sportsman's code, and I think I made you aware that you're in the hot area there where you were hunting. It's Iowa County being number one for sure. Yeah. The most tested positive cases. And then you got Richland and you got Sauk counties. And Grant is right close there, and I don't think as many people are testing deer in Grant.
I would agree to that. The access is pretty limited down in that part of the state. Yep. So I wouldn't say I drove a long ways. I'd say it was far worth it. I had the time, fortunately, but I drove a decent ways to get. But can you or can you not cross county lines? You can, as long as it's disconnected from spine, right?
To my knowledge, they didn't ever pass that. They never passed it. It was proposed as an emergency rule, and it got gutted.
I can't remember what I read last night.
Yep. So
about that,
basically, you can take your deer, but you're gonna wherever if you have it tested, I think it's smart to have it tested in the county you got it in. But otherwise, you got to disclose that information wherever you are going to go and take it tested. But
you have to. A lot of people have to disclose it anyway.
Yeah,
I stayed in the county and they want to know.
They show you a map. Yeah. They ask you coordinates. Yeah, all that fun stuff. So,
well, hey guys, that's Rut Club Radio. We got one caller, Jeff Genke. You're going to be the winner. I'll do the announcement tomorrow. I'll spin the wheel and it'll land on you. We'll be back on at 7:00 for the full episode to hear Connor's story of the buck that he got and talk just rut activity, how you can hunt it, what you should be looking for, etc. So we'll dive deeper and we'll continue to take calls. Come back at 7:00.
Winner of the heated nunchuck.
That's right.